10 years ago, I personally threw the shards of this ornament into the trash. I'm a historian. I only trust facts. But this morning, there it was, completely intact, hanging on a tree that appeared out of nowhere inside our locked house. How do you save Christmas when your reality is breaking? Watch closely. There is no logical explanation. Chapter 1. 5 alarms and 1 nervous breakdown. The morning began with a dull thud. That was Lulu, our cat, performing his daily leap of faith from the top of the wardrobe directly onto my wife, Clara's stomach. I cracked one eye open. 7 a.m., Christmas Eve. On my feet were socks covered in pineapples, my quiet rebellion against the winter grey. Beside me, Clara sighed. She wasn't sleeping. I know that look. She was mentally recounting the battery supply for the fairy lights and checking if I'd forgotten to buy bread. Of course I had. In our house, the morning doesn't break. It invades. First, Jules' alarm went off, our 7-year-old internal combustion engine, followed closely by Zoe, his twin sister, and personal literary critic. Then Michel joined them. He's 10, and he's convinced Santa is a CIA black op project. Then came Louise, the kind of teenager who calls Christmas a bourgeois capitalist cult, but accepts the presents anyway. She was dressed entirely in black, like a moral conscience, before the first coffee of the day. And finally, little Anna, 4 years old. Our tiny angel in sheep pajamas, with a face that could win citizenship in any country, just by photo. "Daddy, is it Christmas yet?" she asked with the enthusiasm of a revolutionary in a retirement home. "Almost, sunshine. Today is Magic Pinecone Day," I replied, pulling on my sweater. Magic Pinecone Day. My personal pedagogical triumph and total disgrace simultaneously. The tradition started 5 years ago, when I forgot to buy a tree. I had to tell the kids the pine cone was a time capsule that would grow into a tree if placed in the middle of the room and believed in hard enough. Clara and I decorated an artificial tree overnight and told them it had grown by morning. The kids were thrilled. I was saved. And we've played this game every year since. Today is the hunt. We're going to the forest to find the most beautiful one. But first, we have to survive long enough to get there. Getting ready felt like evacuating a burning circus. Michel was trying to superglue a garland to the ceiling. So far, he'd only glued his fingers. Zoe was arguing with Jules that wearing mittens on your feet isn't a style, it's a diagnosis. Louise was staring at her phone like it was a portal to a better dimension. "We need a family photo," Clara commanded, trying to comb Anna's hair while stirring something in a mug. She looked like a general before the final battle, just in a bathrobe. "There's no tree," Louise grumbled. "There will be." Clara shot me a look that clearly said, "If you've lost your socks again, I'm filing for divorce." I had lost them, naturally. But I found a scarf, not mine, Louise's, but in this house. The concept of private property is very blurry. Anna was waiting by the door with her backpack. "I packed a spoon," she announced, "to eat the snow." "Logical," I nodded. "Eating with your hands is vulgar." When we finally managed to dress, sweat, argue over hats, and find Jules' shoe in the laundry basket, I looked at my wife. Clara froze by the door. Chaos reigned, kids were screaming, the cat was trying to escape, but she stood motionless. Something strange crossed her eyes, not fatigue, calm, as if she knew something I didn't. She exhaled, adjusted Anna's hat, and said quietly, "All right, let's go." I opened the door. The freezing air hit my face, promising that this day would be long, and apparently unforgettable. Chapter 2. The Polar Expedition and the Gentleman from Nowhere. The forest greeted us with silence and a cold that cut right to the bone. As the head of the family, I feigned the enthusiasm of a polar explorer, even though the only thing I was dreaming of was mulled wine and a warm blanket. Clara huddled in her scarf, eyeing the trees with suspicion, as if they were planning an ambush. "The cold makes us stronger," I declared cheerfully. And in that exact second, my foot went through the ice of an unseen puddle with a loud squelch. "Dad found a portal to Atlantis again," Zoe noted in her notebook. Probably under a chapter titled Father's Failures. Icy water poured into my boot, but I kept smiling. It's tradition. If I don't get wet feet, Christmas is officially cancelled. Jules was running in circles like a Labrador puppy. Michelle was poking the frozen ground with a stick, looking for traces of alien civilizations. And Louise walked as if she were being led to the gallows, not to find a pine cone. "Daddy, do pine cones really live here?" Anna held onto my leg with her tiny mitten. "Of course, sweetheart. They're just hiding." We wandered for 20 minutes. Jules found a rotten branch. Michelle found a rock that looked like a gnome's skull. I only found a second puddle. And just as Clara was about to sound the general retreat, the air changed. It went quiet, too quiet. Even the birds stopped singing. Between the pines, as if developing on an old photograph, an old man appeared. Tall, wearing a grey coat that had seen the last century, and a hat dusted with snow. He didn't walk. He was just there. I'm a historian. I know what people from the past look like. This man looked like he was history itself. "Have you lost something?" he asked. Anna, without a second of hesitation, stepped toward him. "We're looking for a magic pine cone to grow a tree." He looked at her, long and quiet. It was the kind of look only those who can hear what isn't spoken possess. I tensed up. My dad instincts were screaming, "Stranger in the woods!" But Clara put a hand on my shoulder. She felt it too. There was no threat coming from him, only immense peace. The old man smiled with his eyes, leaned down and picked up the most ordinary, plain pine cone from the ground. "Then this is the one you need," he said, handing it to Anna. "Inside sleeps a tree. It is small, but very stubborn." Anna accepted it like a crown jewel. "Will it really grow?" asked Michelle, forgetting his aliens. "If you don't wait for a miracle, but make one. Absolutely," the stranger replied. "Excuse me," I couldn't help asking, shifting from my wet foot to the dry one. "But who do we have the honor of meeting?" Louise rolled her eyes, ready to fire off a sarcastic remark, but the old man beat her to it. "I am Mr. Nicholas." A pause hung in the air, so ringing you could almost hear the snow falling. "Is that a stage name?" Clara clarified. "Names are just labels, Mom. What matters is what's inside. Protect the tradition. It grows the thing that holds a family together." He touched the brim of his hat and stepped back behind the trees. I blinked, literally for a second. And when I opened my eyes, he was gone. No footprints, no snapping twigs, nothing. "He vanished," whispered Jules. "Glitch in the matrix," Michelle suggested uncertainly. We stood in the middle of the forest, stunned and silent. Anna was clutching the pine cone tight. "Daddy, he was real, wasn't he?" she asked quietly. I looked at the spot where he had stood, at the wet snow, at my family, who had suddenly stopped bickering and whining. "I think so, Angel. I think so." The drive back was silent. No one fought for the window seat. The car smelled of wet wool and mystery. No one made a noise. It was a silence that wasn't empty. It was an internal tree, maybe with just one light on for now. I watched the road and thought, to hell with the wet boot. I think we found something more than just a piece of wood. Chapter 3. The Perfect Storm and a Letter to the Void. The morning was suspiciously quiet. The coffee didn't boil over, the kids didn't fight. I even found both socks from the same pair. In our house, a silence like this is a harbinger of the apocalypse, and it struck at exactly 2:10 p.m. I decided the staircase lacked grandeur, so I climbed up to hang a garland. As a designer, I visualized the composition. As a man with the natural grace of a sack of potatoes, I failed to account for gravity. "Don't overreach," Clara started. Too late. A second later, I was hanging upside down, tangled in wires like a very overweight Christmas fly. "I can't feel my legs," I announced in a tragic whisper, while blinking lights strangled me in a festive embrace. "That's because you're wearing our daughter's socks, Paul," my wife sighed, untangling this Gordian knot. "You look like the victim of a festive python." At 3 p.m., Louise declared a boycott on gift wrapping, calling it exploitation of child labor. And at 4:10 p.m., a tragedy of national proportions occurred. The cake, Clara's signature dessert, decided to imitate the Leaning Tower of Pisa and simply slid sideways, turning into a sugary mush. I saw my wife's face change from "I have everything under control" to "I am buying a one-way ticket to Antarctica right now." "Françoise," she yelled at the ceiling, invoking the spirit of my mother. "Why are you punishing me? Teach me to bake. Don't humiliate me." And then the lights went out in the whole house. Michelle immediately claimed it was a cyber attack by Santa's rivals, and the cat took advantage of the panic to steal a piece of cheese from the table. We stood there in the dark, smelling burnt dough and feline triumph, when the doorbell rang. On the doorstep stood Isabel, the neighbor, perfect blazer, perfect hair, and a box of cookies that looked like they were baked by angels. "Hi," she chirped. "Just stopped by to wish you some magic. Everything is ready at our place. Even the balcony lanterns are synchronized with the music." I physically felt Clara get electrocuted by the comment. The contrast between this glossy image and our burnt chaos was unbearable. "Thanks," Clara choked out and closed the door. She didn't cry. Worse, she went silent. Clara walked into the kitchen, sat down and pulled out a piece of paper. I stayed in the doorway. By the light of a single candle, I saw her shoulders shaking. She was writing fast, nervously, wiping tears with the sleeve of her bathrobe. A letter? To whom? To me? To God? To Santa? She folded the paper and hid it in a box of tinsel, like a secret too heavy to carry. I walked in quietly and sat on the floor next to her chair. "Want to run away?" I asked. "Where?" "Into a time machine. Back to yesterday morning. It was bad yesterday too. Then we stay here." She slid down to the floor with me. We sat among the boxes in the dark. "Paul, I failed again. The cake is burnt. There's still no tree. I just wanted a miracle, and I organized a circus. Look at it from another angle." I pulled her close. "The kids are alive. The house is standing, and a crooked tree is avant-garde. You know what the weirdest thing is? That we're still married? No, that's logical. You're the only person who can stand me. Yeah, and you're the only one who didn't get scared off by 5 kids. I didn't know how many there would be. Nobody knows. They just start appearing, like mushrooms, but loud. We laughed. It was a tired laugh, quiet but real. We started decorating the tree like soldiers who had lost the plan but not hope. I just wanted to say, I continued, every year you think you're not coping, because I'm not. But every year it works out. Look at them. They're happy, they're home, they believe. She smiled weakly, burying her face in my shoulder. Your socks with the hedgehogs, they are terrible. I know. It's my talent. We sat on the floor amidst boxes, fairy lights, and the smell of tangerines. The world was still imperfect, the cake ruined. Half the gifts unwrapped, the tree totally crooked, but inside it was calm, as if Christmas had already begun. Not with magic, but with acceptance, with the fact that even a failure can be beautiful if it's shared with those you love. On the stairs, someone squeaked, "Mom?" Anna, with the pine cone in her hands. She says, "You guys are doing great," she whispered, and vanished back into the dark. I looked at Clara. "Did you hear that?" "No, but I believe her." Chapter 4. The Tree That Wasn't There and the Glass Bird. The morning began with the most terrifying sound a parent of 5 can hear. Silence. I opened my eyes at 7:30. Usually at this hour our house sounds like the storming of the Bastille. But today, no screaming, no crashing, no sound of a cat hitting the floor. "They've escaped," I whispered, staring at the ceiling. "They started a circus and moved to Mexico." Clara was sleeping, smiling in her dream. She was probably dreaming she wasn't married to me. Suddenly, the door flew open. Anna, eyes like saucers. "Daddy, Mommy, it grew." "Who?" I croaked. "The tree." We went downstairs with the usual disaster response team, me, Clara, and Panic. We froze in the living room doorway. Yesterday there stood a crooked construction held together by Scotch tape that we proudly called a tree. Today, standing there was her, real, alive. A massive spruce with its top brushing the ceiling. It smelled of pine needles, frost, and something elusive, happiness, I think. It glowed with lights, perfect ornaments, and velvet ribbons. Did you get up last night?" Clara whispered, squeezing my hand until my knuckles turned white. "Clara, I sleep like the dead. I didn't even hear you stealing the duvet." And then she stepped forward, slowly, like in a dream. Her hand reached for a low branch. Hanging there was a small glass bird with golden wings. "This can't be," my wife's voice trembled. "What is it?" "It's my grandfather's ornament. Look, the scratch on the wing. I broke it 10 years ago. You threw the shards away yourself. It cannot be here." We stood in silence. I am a historian. I believe in facts, dates, and archaeology. But right now, looking at this bird returned from oblivion, I realized there are things that don't fit into textbooks. Anna walked up and placed the pine cone under the tree. "I told you, it's magic." A white envelope was tucked between the branches. Jules grabbed it. "It's for us." Inside lay a card. "He who does not wait for a miracle makes it himself, and he who makes it eventually gets it back. Merry Christmas, Mr. Nicholas." I sat down on the rug. The cat immediately climbed onto my head, confirming his status as the owner of the situation. The kids were screaming, unwrapping presents. But Clara and I just looked at each other. In her eyes, the ice that had been accumulating for weeks was finally melting. There was no exhausted mum or overwhelmed dad anymore. Just us, and a miracle that smelled of resin. Towards evening there was a knock at the door. It was Isabel, the perfect neighbor. Only now there was no Chanel. She was wearing an old puffer jacket, no makeup, a red nose and the swollen eyes. "Clara, Paul, can I come in?" Her voice cracked. "My duck is burnt. The kids have murdered each other. My husband went to the garage to watch football. I just wanted a little silence. Do you have any?" Clara opened the door wide without a word. Isabel walked in, saw our tree and froze. "My God, it looks like a fairy tale. And at our place, it's just an overpriced movie set." She sat on the sofa and cried, quietly, for real. Clara sat next to her and hugged her. "You know, Isabel," she said, "perfect Christmases don't exist, only living ones." We sat in the living room, us, our kids, the neighbor, and the cat. The tree blinked, reflecting in the dark window. I looked at them and thought, a miracle isn't just when a tree grows. A miracle is when people stop pretending and simply become human again. Chapter 5, Waffles, Truths, and the Light in the Window. Christmas has a smell, burnt sugar and waffles. It's a law of physics. Even if you don't own a waffle maker, this smell will appear eventually, out of nowhere, just like our tree. The kitchen was in a state of cozy chaos, the kind usually seen in yogurt commercials, except ours was real. Jules, wearing an apron that touched the floor, was directing the operation. Zoe was auditing the oil consumption in her notebook, and Anna was chugging maple syrup straight from the bottle. I was peeling a tangerine, watching them. My wife had flour in her hair. Louise had put down her phone for the first time all year and was simply staring at the fairy lights. "Let's read the letters," Michelle suddenly announced. "What letters?" I choked on a tangerine slice. "The ones we wrote to Santa. I kept them." A silence fell. Usually this is the moment teenagers roll their eyes and leave, but Louise stayed. The benefit of being a dad is that you always have to be the brave one, so I went first. "Dear Santa," I read from my crumpled paper, "I would like a toolkit, and for Jules to finally stop eating only cheese for dinner." Everyone laughed. Then Michelle read his. "Santa, if you exist, please make Mom less sad at night. I can hear her." I stopped chewing. Clara froze with a ladle in her hand. We looked at each other, the kids. They know everything. They are like little radars picking up every crack in the parental armor. Clara walked over and kissed the top of Michelle's head, without a word. Words were unnecessary. And finally, Louise, she turned the envelope in her hands for a long time. "I don't believe in magic," she began in her usual skeptical tone. "But I believe in this family, in Mom, who organizes the party every year, even when she has no energy left. In Dad, who hangs lights, even though he's afraid of heights. In us, maybe that is the magic, just domestic magic." I looked at my daughter and realized, there it is, my real gift, not the tools, this admission. But the day didn't end with waffles. When it got completely dark, Anna came up to me. She was holding the pine cone. "Daddy, she wants to go home." "Where?" "To the forest, to the old man. She's done her job and now she's bored." Arguing with Anna on Christmas is like arguing with the weather forecast. Pointless. We got dressed and walked out into the night. The crunch of snow under our boots was the only sound in the world. Anna led us confidently, as if she had a built-in GPS for miracles. We reached the edge of the woods. There, where the forest met the old village, stood a small cottage. I could swear it hadn't been there before, or maybe we just never looked. A light was burning in the window. The door was ajar. "Hello?" I called out. Silence. We walked in. It was warm, smelling of old wood and cinnamon, but no owner. The house was empty. On the table stood a box. Inside were candles, small, all different. On each one a name was carved: Mom, Dad, Anna, Jules, Zoe, Michelle, Louise, and a note. For those who believe, this house is no longer needed. Now, the miracle lives with you. Anna placed the pine cone on the mantelpiece. Thank you, she whispered to the empty room. We'll take it from here. The walk back was silent. I held Clara's hand. I don't know who that old man was. Did he even exist? Or was it a collective hallucination? But as we approached our house, I saw the light of our tree in the window, and I realized it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who hung the ornaments. What matters is that we are standing here, holding hands, and no one wants to run away to their phone or to work. We stopped at the porch. A star shot across the sky, tracing a bright line over the roof. "Make a wish!" Jules shouted. I looked at my wife, at her messy hair, at the smile that finally reached her eyes for real. "I already got everything," I said. "I have you guys. And finally socks that actually fit. You know, my dear, if you feel like your Christmas is going off the rails, if the cake is burnt, the kids are screaming, and your spirit is at zero, breathe. Perfect holidays don't exist. Only living ones do. Leave the dirty dishes in the sink, hug the ones closest to you, and believe me, you don't need to look for a miracle in the forest. It's already sitting at your table. Merry Christmas."